The special guest is already sitting in the space which is normally reserved for members of the public. So I'm not sure what time her day ends, but Ms. Lizette Overmeer is joining us for the last time in her capacity as a WCPP staff member. And after this, she'll be eating some of our snacks as a member of the public. And we do hope that as a university student, she will continue to engage with the WCPP and also this committee, because we don't want to lose the expertise and the institutional memory that is attached to you, Lizette. So we do hope that depending on what your research is, I'm not saying it should be anything to do with procedural advice of Parliament, but I'm hoping that it is, that we could use your knowledge in the academic space, and you can further strengthen the partnerships that the public education and outreach team has been working so hard to build with the University of the Western Cape and the other institutions. Members? For the record, please may I ask that you introduce yourselves, and we'll start with the members in the chambers, and then we will go to the members online. And after that, I will ask the speaker and the deputy speaker to introduce themselves online, and then we'll go to the secretary and the colleagues in the chambers, and then we'll go back online to those joining us online.
Morning, Chairperson. It's Dave Bryant.
Morning, everyone. I'm Benedicte van Minnen.
Good morning, Chair. Wendy Kaiser-Philander.
Members online, if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Good morning, Chair and colleagues. Basil Petrus.
Thank you very much, Honourable Petrus. Mr. Speaker, over to you.
Morning, colleagues, and good morning to the members on in the chamber and online. I'm Dalen Mitchell, and I'm the speaker.
Good morning, Chairperson, members and officials. Regan Allen, Deputy Speaker.
Good morning, Chairperson, honourable members of the committee and colleagues and Speaker, Deputy Speaker online. My name is Rashida Beg. I'm the newly appointed Secretary of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. I was told very recently I've got 3 months to still use that newly appointed. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, and everyone online and in the chamber. Sunil Fisher.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members. Good morning, colleagues. Dawood Jawudin, Manager Finance.
Good morning, honourable members, Chairperson and colleagues. I'm Margot Goldstone, Director for Strategy.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, colleagues. Vernon Titus, Institutional Enablement.
Good morning, Chair, members and colleagues. Lubabalu Stemele, Director Parliamentary Support Services.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. My name is Temba Nolusu. I'm the Manager, Safety, Security and Precinct Management. Thank you.
Good morning, Andre Leroux, Senior Legal Advisor.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Ridwan Babu, Knowledge Management and Information Services. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members and colleagues. Mario Sassman, Committee Support Manager. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Temba Keswa, PEO. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Kobe Skriker, Manager ICT.
Good morning, everyone. Zinzi Nikelo, Manager Financial Compliance and Internal Control. Thank you.
Good morning, Genevieve Ackham, Manager in Office of the Secretary.
May we go to the officials online?
Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Alexander, Supply Chain Manager.
Morning, Chair. Morning, members. Craig Mattia, Directorate Strategy and Institutional Oversight.
Good morning, Chair and members. Irma de Lange, the Senior Officer in Strategy and Institutional Oversight.
Good morning, Lurica Elliott, Office of the Speaker.
Chair, if I may, there is an apology for the CFO, Nicole Peterson.
Chairperson, I just want to alert you that we are not able to hear you in the chamber. If you can just, I don't know if the microphone is on.
Sorry, it was not on. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't chaired a meeting in a while, so I forgot you have to use the microphone. But I was just saying that I was fortunate enough to have been invited to the Long Service Award ceremony hosted in the auditorium the other day, where we celebrated the achievement of people working at the WCPP. And it was really nice to see all the people working in the WCPP in one space, and also colleagues having been celebrated for their contribution. And I think it's an important aspect of what we're trying to do as a parliament, and in terms of the culture journey that the speaker has been taking us on. So I do hope in future, Madam Secretary, we'd extend that invitation to members of this committee as well, so they can see sort of how people are being celebrated and some of what you do in action as well, because we very often just get the reports, and it's always just on paper in a presentation, and sometimes it's nice to feel it as well. But as I said, it's a short meeting today. We're here to get a briefing on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament's first quarterly report, so both the financial and non-financials. And I'm going to start off by asking the speaker if you'd like to make any opening remarks, and then the secretary, or whoever's doing the presentation can go right into it, and we'll go into questions and answers after that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson, and once again, good morning, colleagues. I'm not going to make long opening remarks. I think it's a very exciting time to be able to report back on the first quarter of the first quarter of the strategic plan that the WCPP put together, that we have tabled in front of this committee before. I'm very excited to also say that we are on track to achieve that strategic objectives and the vision that we boldly crafted with the various stakeholders, inclusive of members of the committee or members of parliament, civil society, thought leaders, and so I'm very excited to be able to present this morning. And we'll go through the presentation from a legislative framework perspective. What is our strategic overview? And then obviously get into the performance of both the financials and non-financials. I think it would be remiss of me not to officially welcome the secretary to this first Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting, because I do think that both from as the accounting officer plus the executive authority, I think we are in synergy of what we want to achieve for the next 5 years for the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, and not just for the members and the staff, but ultimately what we do every day to enhance and better the lives of the people of this beautiful province that we have the opportunity to serve. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the introductory remarks, Speaker. You've just made it a little bit easier. I was hoping the Chief Whip is going to share the Mexican wave that he was forced to do the other day. But it was just a sign of when people are in synergy and when an institution and administration and the political side are in synergy, we're capable of moving in the same direction. And I largely think that is what the first quarter report is all about. It's about setting up a foundation for the institution of achieving, as Speaker said, a very bold vision of becoming the best regional parliament on the continent, and also to compare favorably with other regional parliaments across the globe. There are mainly 2 targets that we are focused on in the first quarter, 2 out of 40. And I'm happy to say that we've achieved both targets. It's 100% performance. Finance will also give a reflection on where we are in terms of spending the budget. I'm not too concerned about it. Chair, maybe just to highlight what we have discussed with the senior management team as well as the management team is the 40 targets with 32 that we will need to achieve. Largely annual targets, and the need for us to be able to break down those targets into quarterly milestones to make sure that we are on track. Are ever comfortable that the team is ready, that we have a very competent team, not fairly competent, very competent team. And they've proved that yesterday when we presented the same information to the audit committee and where the report was also received favorably. Chair, without further ado, can I just hand over to Ms. Margot Goldstone? She will take us through the performance report. And if you are in agreement, that we then hand over to Mr. Jawardin to share the financial information for the first quarter. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both you and the Speaker. And I must just put on the record, the reason we're not doing the Mexican wave is because I'm scared the Speaker will rule me out of order, like he did yesterday. Over to you, Ms. Goldstone.
Thank you, Chairperson. There's a bit of lag on the tech side on my side, but I will start to speak to the presentation. So this is the presentation for the first quarter of 25-26. Chairperson, just in terms, okay, there we go. In terms of the legislative framework, the committee would be aware that quarterly reporting by the Provincial Parliament is a requirement in terms of FAMPLA, specifically sections 52 and 54. Chair, in terms of the strategic overview, as the committee would also be aware, the work of the Provincial Parliament is anchored in the constitutional mandate of legislatures, which is oversight, lawmaking and public participation. But our work is also shaped by our vision, mission, core values, and the strategic priorities that the Speaker spoke about, which frame how we have conceptualized our strategic initiatives and key deliverables for the 5-year term. And ultimately, the goal, as the speakers also indicated, is to deepen democracy in the Western Cape. So that, in short, is our strategic overview. This slide just indicates the linkage between our strategic priorities and the budget programs. Budget programs obviously giving effect to our key outputs and outcomes in terms of the strategy. Chair, I'll now turn to an overview of the performance for quarter 1. Quite simply, as the Secretary already indicated, we had 40 indicators and targets for the financial year. 2 were set for this quarter, and both of them were achieved. This slide just gives the breakdown of the targets and the achievement levels, and you will see that the 2 targets in question were in Program 1, Governance, Leadership and Administration. Under the Sub-Program Office of the Speaker, we targeted 100% compliance by the Executive Authority with the prescribed legislative obligations in terms of FAMPLA, and this was achieved. So those obligations would have included tabling of the monthly financial reports, so the IYM reports, the QPR reports. There was also a consultation meeting with the Provincial Minister of Finance, which in terms of FAMPLA needs to take place in the first quarter of the financial year. Then in terms of the Sub-Program Office of the Secretary, we also set out to comply 100% with the FAMPLA requirements in that regard. This was also 100% achieved. Some of the deliverables there would have been in terms of FAMPLA requirements, that a monthly financial and quarterly performance reports would have been prepared and duly submitted to the Executive Authority. In addition, for the accounting officer is required in terms of FAMPLA to submit the draft budget and APP for the 26-27 year in the first quarter to the executive authority. Chair, the next couple of slides give a little bit of detail in terms of the key activities that we've undertaken that respond to the strategic priorities. So I won't go through all of them, but maybe just to give a sense of, and the report that we've submitted and that has been tabled is quite detailed in terms of all the activities, but I'll just give a high-level overview at this point. In relation to the strategic priority 1, building a credible WCPP, the key activities that we've mentioned there relate in the main to financial governance, budgeting, resourcing, and also statutory compliance actions. Of interest to the committee may be the technical assistance that we will be receiving from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. We have signed an MOU with them to support us in various areas of our mandate, including one key strategic initiative around post-legislative scrutiny. So the assistance that they will provide to us will be varied in its form. It may involve technical assistance in the form of consultants or specialists that can come and assist us in actually making key initiatives happen in the WCPP. The strategic priority number 2, improving and expanding services and the experiences of the people of the Western Cape. The key activities here in the main focus on public participation and connecting the WCPP and members to communities. And here we have some images that were taken during the quarter that demonstrate the kind of work that is happening in this space. We've also included, and you will have seen members from the detailed report, that we have started to profile the work that happens in public engagement, in plenary and in committees in a much more detailed way. So you will see we have key statistics for the quarter, which we will be presenting going forward. We will compare previous quarters, but also compare the previous year's similar period as we report going forward. Strategic priority 3, strengthening the core business. So these speak directly to the core mandate of oversight and lawmaking. Here we refer to one of the key activities in the quarter, which, as members will be aware, would have been the processing of the 25-26 Western Cape Appropriation Bill, which had been retabled following the withdrawal of the National Bill and the fiscal framework. We also refer to the processing of legislation, and we've just mentioned one piece of legislation that was processed during the period. And again, we have some key statistics of plenary activity and activity of our standing committees. Under strategic priority 4, strengthening support to legislators. The activities focus in the main on enhanced resourcing, capacitation, and enablement of our members. We refer to several activities, one of them being the review of the Members' Facilities Guide, which was undertaken and which may influence members' remuneration and benefits. We also refer to opportunities that were created during the first quarter where members participated in various interparliamentary engagements, both international as well as locally. And here is just a snapshot of some of the engagements and the delegations that we hosted for the purposes of knowledge sharing, as well as networking and profiling of the WCPP during the quarter. Chairperson, strategic priority 5, strengthening organizational culture, administrative capability, performance, and resilience. So these activities are really just a reflection of our investment in the people that make up the WCPP from a staffing perspective. It's an investment in our processes and systems, and this is in line with our aspiration to be a modern parliament, but also to be adequately capacitated to both support and service members and our stakeholders in line with our mandate. A notable milestone would have been obviously the process towards appointing the secretary. She assumed her position on the 1st of July. So the process was underway during quarter 1. And then also of interest perhaps to the committee would be strategic training partnerships. So we started to have engagements with the National School of Government and the Provincial Training Institute to look at how we can collaborate on training and capacitation for members and for staff. Chair, in summary, that is our Q1 non-financial performance report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to go straight over to Mr. Jawadin, if that's in order, members, for the financials as well.
Thank you, Chair. It's basically presenting the financials as at the end of the first quarter, as at the end of end of June 2025. As at the end of the first quarter, of our 269,189,000 budget, we had spent 68,513,000, which is an effective spend of 25.45% spend as at the end of the first quarter, which illustrates we're fairly on track with regards to expenditure for the first quarter. There are obviously expenditure that is more than what would, on the face of it, look like a spend by ever. I'm particularly referring to member support, but that's particularly because members' secretarial and constituency allowances are paid in advance. And with some of the percentages which I will go through in the various programs, where there are some less than, if I can call it, less than normal expenditures due to particularly with the fact that we do have quite a few once-off expenditure projects planned during the latter part of the financial year, for example, in the Q2, 3, and 4. With regards to program 1 of the 99,985,000, we've spent just over 19 million of that, which is a 19% spend. If I can maybe through you, Chair, just particularly highlight certain percentages or sub-programs where we are looking at a spend that's not what we normally would have. If we look at the strategy and organizational performance, the reason for that 5% spend is because there is a once-off project planned to the value of 2 million rand for an impact assessment and done within that sub-program, which is planned later on in the financial year. And obviously, the spend will then be caught up once that project has been finalized. If you look at people management, the 19% spend there is primarily due to the fact that there is some training interventions planned later in the financial year, which is once concluded, that spend will be caught up as well. Under information technology and digital services, the 12.22% spend there is mainly due to the fact that there is also a very project planned in this financial year in terms of the AV upgrade in the chamber and committee rooms. That budget in this particular financial year is 5 million of that budget. Once that project is finalized towards the fourth quarter, that spend and percentage we obviously will see accelerated as well. And security services, the 16% spend there is primarily due to the fact that we are now budgeting from our own budget for the SAP security or static security services, and getting claims from SAPs for those are very slow. So once we do get claims from SAPs, those invoices are paid, and in the first quarter they were quite there wasn't that many invoices that was received, so we pay as we receive those claims from SAPs for the static security services. Under program 2 of the 26.5 million budget, we spent 5.3 million or 20% budget with regards to that. If I can maybe touch on 2 sub-programs there. Under plenary, the 17% spend there is mainly due to the fact that there is the manager vacancy in that post has now finally been filled from the 1st September, but up until June that post was vacant. And obviously with regards to committee activity in terms of interpreting services, that's the reason for that 17% spend there. Under Hansard services, as at the end of June, there were no invoices received as yet. However, in July, we did receive one big invoice of over 160,000 in terms of Hansard services. But the reason for that 0% spend as at the end of June is because of the fact no invoices were received for payment as the end of June. In terms of program 3, the 17 million budget there, we spent 3.7 million, which is a 21% spend there. If I can maybe just touch on public education and outreach, the reason for that 18% spend is not higher is also there is a once-off project planned late in the financial year in that sub-program in terms of the digital online platform linked to the website, which is also a strategic project as well. With regards to program 4 of the 67.4 million budget, we've spent 28.9 million, which is a 42.85% spend. And that's what I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. The reason why that percentage is so high is the fact that obviously for the member secretarial and constituency allowances, we pay those allowances in advance. So as at the end of June, the party's second quarter advance would have been, ideally that would have been up to 50%. However, the allowance are only paid upon approval of political parties' annual financial statements. And then program 5, the direct charge, which is member salaries. So there is a 19% spend there. That's obviously because we do budget for an increase, but as at the end of June, the increase has not yet been approved. Then, Chair, that's basically the summary of the first quarter spend as at the end of June.
Thank you very much to you, as well as to Ms. Goldstone for those presentations. Members, we've now moved into the stage where you can ask any questions or make any comments. For those of you online, please use the raise your hand function just to indicate that you'd like to ask a question. And then for the members inside the chambers, grab my attention whichever way you want, even if it's a Mexican wave. Honourable Bryant.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks for the presentations. I've got just two kind of general questions. They link up maybe with some of the first quarter expenditure and some of the things that we mentioned, and perhaps maybe we could look when we get to our resolutions in terms of requesting presentations. I know previously we did request one on security, and maybe we need to have that at some stage. But I think, my first question is just with regards to, I suppose, security protocol. When it comes to, it might sound like a very basic issue, but for members coming in and out of the ground level entrances, is there a different protocol for a provincial minister and a member of provincial parliament when it comes to the security protocols? If we can just get confirmation on that. And then the second one is something that I've been thinking about for quite a while during our proceedings. We obviously stream our sittings and our committee meetings. And I do think with the investment that's going into some of the virtual infrastructure that's happening in here, the actual transmission of those meetings could be a little bit more user-friendly. I think if one logs on to YouTube, for instance, it's, you've got what you would have on a regular Teams meeting with all of the pictures and it's a little bit all over the place. So I think that could be a little bit more viewer-friendly. And then the second aspect of that is I'm trying to work out if there is a difference and what the difference would be between having a committee meeting in here, for instance, what we're doing now, where while I'm speaking, the focus is on the chamber, whereas when we have a full meeting, a plenary, the cameras tend to focus on the people while they're speaking. So if you're a viewer that's watching right now, and the secretary is speaking, for instance, I'm sure that people at home would like to be able to see the secretary while she's speaking. So if there's a reason why we have one kind of functionality for a committee meeting in the chamber and one functionality for a plenary meeting, if you can explain that. I know they're very general questions, but it's a small agenda, so I hope you can indulge me. Thanks.
I don't see any other hands, but just to comment on your question, Honourable Bryant, what we have also scheduled for our next engagement is a walkabout, which is something we try to do annually, stemming from the fire at the National Assembly. I think we might, I think that walkabout is being led by security services, but also members, there's an opportunity, I think, until Sunday for everybody in the WCPP to comment on the security policy. I think it's the 31st. I know I'm working on my comments, but on the chamber thing, it's interesting. We've got that working, that MOU with the CPA, and I know Mr. Titus will remember We saw the amazing system at the Scottish Parliament when we visited them in 2022. So maybe we can ask this, the CPA whether they can just get the Scottish Parliament to just give us their system, their broadcasting system. Just some questions from my side, since I don't see any other hands from the members. On the streaming and the communication, the social media sort of sharing of the information of the WCPP, are we doing any type of moderation? So when we post something on Facebook, whether it's an activity of the WCPP and members of the public comment on the threads, do we engage and answer those questions if people have that? And my second question would be, I note the status of the update to the members' facilities guide, and that it's currently at a phase where it's final discussion pending finalization. Do we have a timeline for when that will be done? And then I also wanted to ask, is there a specific policy or standard operating procedure within the WCPP that is used to determine the type of support infrastructure that is provided to political parties? So how do we make a decision on which political party gets 5 chairs or 20 chairs, which political party gets a kitchen with that can fit a fridge, a bar fridge, and that can fit a double fridge, etc. And how do we decide sort of office spaces just based on sort of how many bodies you have? Is there sort of a process of how that decision is made? And my last question, Mr. Jawadin, one of the risks that's always in my mind every time we go into an appropriation or budget season is the lack of budgetary autonomy that the WCPP has as an institution. One of the sort of core systemic issues in the sort of South African parliamentary structure and the structure of governance is that as an institution that approves and appropriates funding to a government, we are dependent on that government to give us money. And I know in conversations that we've had before, there were discussions about how the WCPP needs to determine what its budgetary needs are before Treasury is able to allocate money to the rest of government. If you could just speak around how, as part of our sort of risk mitigation measures, how we're tracking that. Because we could end up in a situation where the Minister of Finance actually says, you know, I'm only going to give you half of what you've asked for, and that will severely curtail what the WCPP is able to do. And then the last hand I saw was Ms. Member Kaiser Philander.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm covered in a sense by Member Brian, also yourself making mention of the inputs that we can give in terms of the policy. I think I would just want to ask the question in terms of safety protocols when it comes to oversight visits. What exactly is that protocol? I've seen over the years that it actually differs from visit to visit and depending also where in the province you find yourself. That is the one thing. The second question, Chair, I myself must say that I have received tremendous support from the stakeholder and communication engagement department whenever the need arises. They've really gone above and beyond assisting. But one would want to see that even, you know, extending a bit for the mere fact that a lot of our rural communities, for example, doesn't have the opportunity to come to Parliament or be with us on oversight. But you would also want to give them insight as to what the standing committees are doing. So is there perhaps any plans going forward to extend that service so that we would be able to, even if it's just a synopsis of what we've done as a standing committee on the day, to be able to provide that to our constituents? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary, Mr. Speaker, and the presenters. Over to you.
Thank you very much, honourable members, for the questions. Let me start in series. Honourable Bryant, as the chairperson has indicated, there will be a detailed presentation around security concerns that's been raised. I have watched some of the previous committee meetings on YouTube, so I know what you say about streaming and what it appears like to the viewer on the other side. Just around security protocols, I'm also chair of the JPC, my many sins. It is a structure where we engage with SAPS and all the security service, but also health and safety services for the parliamentary precincts. We have highlighted some of these concerns with them at the previous meeting, the first meeting that I attended. And there is a view that there needs to be improvement, particularly around access and egress, as well as members accessing vehicles late at night after late sittings. There shouldn't be a different protocol, but I will hand over that question to Mr. Nolusu if you want to expand on it. We have raised concerns particularly around the reception of members at the entry points of the institution, but overall there's a need for improvement in terms of security services from an entrance as well as an exit point of view. I'm not sure if Themba wants to add to that.
Thank you, Secretary. Yes, I consider this a precursor to the planned presentation that we will be doing, I think, on the 10th. To the members in the next oversight. But there is protocols that we have that we actually working hand in hand with the South African Police Services. If it's within the metro, we work with law enforcement to ensure that oversight visits and your public hearings do get the necessary security measures in place. So what we do is we do a threat and risk assessment first, and then we also consult our intelligence structures to ensure that the areas that we are actually visiting are not as volatile as to suggest that we cannot go into. But we will also be presenting a concise security plan in the next oversight meeting. Thank you.
I can continue to the next question. It was largely around streaming and viewing. I know that there is a technology refresh both for the committee rooms as well as for the chamber, which will allow us particularly that the technology to hone in onto the speaker who is currently on the floor. So that is on the cards. I don't know if Kobe wants to add anything to that.
Through you, Chair. Yes, we will have a lot more flexibility in terms of the way we mash up the final screen. With the hybrid, obviously teams kind of restrict us to some extent. But what we will relook is how we bring the sign language interpreter in, how we bring the venue in, and then we'll be using a concept called Teams Rooms, which is different to the way we're doing it now. It's all stuff we need to, at implementation stage, we will be involving all stakeholders to, before we do our final handover, etc. And at that time, we will really know, the technology is very sophisticated and it's IP based. It's no longer HDMI cables, and that brings a lot of flexibility in the way we manage it. And then just on the actual camera switching angles, that is basically driven by operators sitting in the control room. So, and there's a cost associated with that. Now, with the new technology, yes, we're going to be more flexible, but there's an operator and the IT team cannot switch cameras because they have to support. So, yeah, but we also need to review what we're doing there. And it is a good opportunity for us to relook how we put this out to the outside and how we put it out internally as well. Thank you.
Chair, if I can get to your question around the members facility guide and the status of it, there has been consultation and broader consultations with political parties. We've received inputs from 2 political parties. The document is finalized. I think we're just waiting on your good self to give us a slot for the Rules Committee meeting, because this document will then be presented to that Rules Committee so that it can be finalized and adopted. There was a question around streaming and whether we actually respond to the comments that we get on from streaming. Perhaps Sunel would want to take that question. I know that in the institution, just in general, we do have resource constraints in particular areas, and public engagement is no different, as well as the media positions that we need to bolster in the institution, and we hope we're going to address that with the organizational review. Sunel?
Thank you very much, Secretary, Chair, through you. The webmaster, the Senior Communications Officer, Mr. Dr. Matthijs Wendel, monitors all the comments on all our social media platforms, including questions and such with streaming, and he channels it to the relevant people for their attention.
Thank you, Chair. There's a question around particularly the budgeting autonomy of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. And I think this is a question that's not only limited to us, it's a broader question at a sector level, legislative sector level, that was raised. And the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act was initially introduced to ensure that the sector gets a top slice. And we know years down the line that has not happened. I think particularly from our perspective, what we need to get right is, one, we need to get to spend our budget. I have noted that we tend to roll over, so we end up funding ourselves with each MTEF period. What we will need to work on is possibly a funding model. Yeah, what we probably would need to consider is working on a funding model, doing the costing of our core mandates, and to make sure that we are able to align our budgets with our strategic plan. So that is a project that we have started, just to focus on committees as well as public participation. So there's an exercise that we are doing with GTAC to do an assessment of our spending in that area, so that we are able to better budget in the future, but also that we are able to spend our budgets before we can ask for more money. The other question, Honourable Kaiser Philander, was around the support from the team in Ms. Forshier's area, the public engagement, stakeholder engagement team. I do think it is an area that also has resource constraints. We only have 3 people to support committees, but also the institutional programs, and we would really want to bolster that. That's also the team that's core to the execution of our public participation mandate, and we're well aware of what number of court judgments have set in that regard. I think internally we've had discussions around a constituency program and how do we support constituency programs for honourable members. So those are the kinds of programs where we feel that we would be able to get closer, particularly to those rural communities who are not able to make their way to the provincial parliament in Cape Town. So there are some programs, and Mr. Shea can elaborate on that, where we would want to maybe get a more rural presence at the WCPP, but if that's not possible, that we take WCPP to the rural communities. Mr. Shea?
Thank you very much, Secretary. We just launched a district awareness program in Womersley on Tuesday, and we are planning on taking that throughout the Western Cape in each and every district, focus on public involvement in lawmaking, the new petitions framework, and stimulating the involvement of people in the WCPP. We do, however, have serious budgetary constraints, as the Secretary is also aware, which is a challenge for us in terms of bringing people to WCPP. And that would for us be the ideal, for people to experience WCPP and the chamber and to meet with members, I almost want to say in your natural habitat. And I know Member Barnes have been requesting us to bring people from Beaufort West. What compounds the cost for that is that we then have to look at transport and accommodation, and meals, etc., which makes it quite expensive. But we are looking to see how in this parliamentary term, whether we can't bring people from each district to WCPP, and we will engage with Dawood, with Mr. Jawuddin, to see whether we can find the budget somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You had a final question around support infrastructure for political parties. I'll ask Mr. Titus to respond to that.
Chair, could I just get that last question on the support structure for political parties again, please?
What I asked was, is there a policy or standard operating procedure that determines how the WCPP allocates office space and infrastructure, the stuff that goes into the office for a political party, specifically things like kitchens, etc.?
So thank you, Chair. Two aspects. One is the physical and movable infrastructure, obviously, office space. And the others are we're speaking about equipment, furniture, etc. We have standardized all furniture for political parties in terms of office space and so on that we've done last year. We've had approval for that particular process. When it comes to actual physical infrastructure, these are matters that must be included in the UAMP, in how we operate, and planned according to that particular documentation. What we have found, Chair, is that our building, especially the kitchens, bathrooms have kind of been upgraded lately, but the kitchens are not necessarily, depending on the number of members per party, may not necessarily be sufficient and appropriate. And so this is something that we need to be taking up. We are in constant conversation with the Department of Infrastructure. And part of this conversation must also look at to what extent we are able to provide infrastructure services that are appropriate for the number of people that it need to serve. It's true for members of parliament and various parties, but it's also true of staff on the various floors within the organization. So that is something that we are trying to take into account. But the vehicle there must be the UAMP.
Thank you. So just for clarity, Mr. Titus, so there is no policy or standard operating procedure, and the process is currently subjective and dependent on the capacity of the Department of Infrastructure and our dependency on the Department of Infrastructure for physical, immovable space as sort of assets. And then in terms of furniture and those things, the process, as you said last year, there was a standardized process in terms of everybody gets the same thing, so we know what's in sort of everybody's office.
So the process for physical infrastructure, I'm talking about office space because that is also dependent on the number of members. There is no particular policy at this point that says that if you have so many members, this is what you need to have in terms of the kind of infrastructure currently. What we also need to bear in mind is that obviously the numbers of members per party do not necessarily stay static. I mean, those are numbers that can be changing depending on election outcomes and so on. So we've never made decisions around the number of members per se, but this is something that we need to be bearing into consideration when we are working on these particular matters.
Thank you very much. Member Brian, is that a follow-up or a new question?
It's a follow-up and it's very quick. I just want to say thanks very much for the explanation on the virtual system. It makes a lot of sense that if you actually have to pay somebody to do the job, it's probably fruitless and wasteful expenditure for now. But moving towards a more kind of AI-centered way of doing things, I'm sure you guys are going to be able to make a plan for that to happen without having to have a person push the button all the time. And then just secondly, Chair, I think it would be really nice for us to extend the invitation to that security walkabout to all members of Parliament if they want to join, so we can get kind of inputs from them as well in real time. Might just be a nice idea, but thanks.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, your last bite at the cherry. Any other questions? Madam, yes, did I hear?
If I can just comment on the AI matter, I think it's important with a setting like this, there's always a chair that needs to allow you to speak. So it's not about the tech to focus on you because your cameras already exist. It's not even AI requirement. We've debated this a couple of years back, but because of the parliamentary setting of the speaker having to acknowledge you, giving you the floor, we can't let technology decide if you are going to be zoomed in on and be given the floor. So it is because of protocols and rules that we have not entertained the automation. But having said that, we have to relook the AI model and the further controls that we have and how we integrate then the speaker or the chair of the meeting to control that to some extent further. But that's the limitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Petrus, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chair, colleagues. Chair, the consultants that we are going to use from time to time, are we going to pay for them, or is it for free, or what?
Member Petrus, I didn't hear your question quite clearly. Do you mind repeating the question?
Yes. Out of the presentation, it was said that we are going to make use of consultants. I think it's from the Commonwealth, or are we going to pay for them, or is it for free, Chairperson?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I understand you're asking about the memorandum of understanding with the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. I'm going to hand over to the Secretary just to respond to that.
If I can ask Margot, I think she's got insights because this happened prior to my arrival. Margot?
Not much insight at this stage, Chair, because we're still negotiating the actual deliverables. I think we've sort of given in the MOU broad areas of support that the CPA will provide. The model that they use is typically to deploy experts in various fields with parliamentary specialist expertise as well as some other technical expertise. So, for example, on AI, they would have technical people, but also people who've worked in a legislative context. So it's in that context that I think I may have mentioned the word consultant, but it's really technical experts. And we will not be paying for that. It would be part of the technical assistance agreement that CPA would cover that kind of support. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I see your hand.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'm mostly covered by Margot, but so as a legislature, we already pay membership fees as part of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association across the country, or across the Commonwealth. We are so the MOU solidifies or captures our agreement. It's actually I think correct me if I'm wrong, Margot, but I think we're the first in the country to have this kind of agreement, and that is merely just to strengthen and capacitate our institution. So there's no cost involved, Honourable Petrus. It's actually about relationship building, and because of the relationship built over many years, that trust relationship between the CPA headquarters and the WCPP was strengthened, and we just formalized it now. And I look forward to many more engagements. Some of our members had opportunities to engage and be part of the capacitation and program that's being offered by the CPA. But this is just to formalize the relationship built over many years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no other hands for questions or any comments. I'm now then going to hand over to the Secretary and the Speaker for any concluding remarks they'd like to make. I did say the Secretary and the Speaker, so I was hoping you'd get you go first and the Speaker goes last. But Speaker, you may go first, and then the Secretary will go last, since the Secretary is with us in person, and we'll be having tea afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much. No, Chair, thank you very much to the members for the engagement. As always, we are open to any suggestions. As I always say, this is a very unique committee because the Parliamentary Oversight Committee does not just affect individual members, it affects Parliament and all political parties. Thank you very much for the manner in which the engagement went today. Please, as always, if there's anything that's burning that can't wait until the next meeting, my door has always been open, and I'm sure the secretary will also be open to that. If there's anything that we can assist with, please feel free to engage us. Ultimately, colleagues, it's our parliament. It's our vision, it's our strategic objectives that we need to achieve, and it's not just the secretary and the speaker's vision and strategies. So, as a parliament and as a collective, how do we strengthen, how do we enhance the quality of service that we provide to the citizens of the province, and ultimately to deepen democracy in the Western Cape? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the engagement. We will obviously take on board some of the questions that we were not able to address directly, if it's either through policy review or systems or process improvements. So we will meet with the management team and see how we can address that and improve the support that we can provide to members to ensure that you're able to carry out your constitutional mandates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the team for showing up in person. We normally spend very little money for POC on catering, so I do hope that we've organized enough for everybody to eat. But members, I'm going to ask that we take a brief 15-minute break just for us to have a cup of coffee and a quick comfort break. We will excuse the colleagues from the WCPP after that, and then we will come back at 15:15 just to conclude some of our work, please. So we'll take a 15-minute break. We'll be back at 15:15. There are some refreshments and tea in the members' lounge. For those of you online, I do hope that you have your own refreshments, but for the colleagues from the WCPP, including the speaker and the deputy speaker, you are excused from the rest of our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Members, we're going to move straight into item number 3 on our agenda, which is the consideration and the adoption of the draft committee report on the first quarterly performance for the WCPP. For the record, I'm just going to read the draft report into the record, and then I'll ask if there's a proposer and a seconder for the adoption of the report. The report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament's first quarter performance, financial and non-financial, 2025, dated 29 August 2025, as follows. The Parliamentary Oversight Committee convened and concluded its deliberation on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament's first quarter performance, financial and non-financial, refer to it in accordance with Rule 89.1, in accordance with Section 37.6 and 66.2 of the Financial Management of Parliaments and Provincial Legislatures Act. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament reported to the committee that no instructions were issued for the period under review. Members, may I have a proposer for that report, if you're all happy with it? Before we go on, Mr. Vermeulen, I see your hand.
Chairperson, thank you. Yeah, just a small thing. Chairperson, I think if I'm correct, if we just look at the report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, I think we should put an apostrophe S in there. Parliament's first quarter, just grammatical, and also deliberations, second paragraph on the Western Cape Provincial Parliament's first quarter performance. And that's just, I think that's correct. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vermeulen. It's very interesting that the version that I have in front of me has all of those corrected. So I think it was just a copy and paste error or an editing error, but the improved paragraph is now before the committee. I saw Member Van Minnen's hand as a proposer, and I see Member Kaiser Philander's hand as a seconder. That report is then duly adopted. We are now then going to consider and adopt the draft committee meeting minutes of the 5th of June 2025. And I'm going to table those minutes, and Ms. Kamish Ahmad is going to flight them on the screen. Those minutes will basically just say that we met on the 5th of June, and it will list the members present. And if you could check that your attendance is correctly recorded. And there you can see it was our budget deliberations. And then that also covers some of our resolutions, which is the resolution that we're going to action on the 10th of September. And the responses from the WCPP on all of those items are also in your inboxes as they were sent by Ms. Kamish Ahmad. Members, are you happy with the minutes, or are there any glaring omissions or additions that are required? May we have a proposer for the minutes? Member Bryant proposes that the minutes is adopted. We do not need a seconder, but Member Van Minnen has raised her hands. The minutes of the meeting of the 5th of June is thus duly adopted. Colleagues, on item number 5, I did want us to consider the adoption of the draft committee program, but I'd like to propose that members take some time to look through the WCPP strategic plan and also the WCPP's annual performance plan from the previous year, and think about what type of items we'd like to place on the agenda. Ideally, the Parliamentary Oversight Committee should meet at minimum 4 times a year. I don't want us to have too many meetings because the committee's schedule is already quite packed. But we will find time to do some of the activities that we'd like to do. So if you could please think about what are those activities and send your suggestions through to Ms. Kamish Ahmed and myself, and we will then put it onto our performance plan and we'll table it at the next meeting for consideration and approval so that you can work out a detailed business plan of what our activities are. And then just on that item, in terms of the committee program, Ms. Kamish Ahmed has also created an online space for us to store and share information. So going forward, I'd like, with your indulgence, for as much as things are being emailed, but also for things to go into that space. That even if you're looking for something, you can go to one place to find it. So we'll have sort of our own OneDrive, Teams folder, where all of those things are, so that it's easier to refer in the committee if you're searching for information as well. It's just we can't argue that Parliament should be more digital, yet we still rely on archaic ways of getting things like email. So that's what we're going to do in terms of the workspace. Also, just on that as well, all members of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee should have access to the portal for monitoring live financial and non-financial performance. So Ms. Kamish Ahmed, if you can just refresh our logins. I haven't logged in a while. So the information that they presented today, we've got viewing access to that all the time, so you can go into a lot more detail, so we can see that. And then we are also going to just adopt the draft committee quarterly report now, and then we'll move to resolutions if there are any. So there we've got the quarterly report, and that is from April to June 2025. And that just gives you an overview, as you would have read through it already. So it was emailed to you about our activities, what we've done. Covers attendance. And then it also covers our budget. And as you can see, of the 50,000 Rand that's been allocated to us, we have spent 2,076 Rand thus far. We are perhaps the most efficient committee in terms of using the resources available to us without wasting money or spending money. Not that the other committees waste money, health, social development. May I ask for a proposer and a seconder for the adoption of the draft committee quarterly report for April to June 2025? I see Member van Manen and seconded by Member Kaiser Philander. Colleagues, with your indulgence, I'd like to ask that resolutions be emailed to Ms. Kamish Ahmed, and we will then deal with them in that way. The deadline being next week, Wednesday, by the close of business. Ms. Kamish Ahmed will just put a little reminder on our calendars that that's the deadline, because I will forget. Any input or anything under general from anybody? That concludes our business today. Members, the meeting is adjourned. Once again, thank you to all of you, and thank you very much to Ms. Kamish Ahmed. And I was going to say another name, Nomfundo. I was going to use your full name and your surname. And I thought, no. The look you gave me when I was about to do it was, do not. Thank you, Nomfundo. And also thank you to Mr. Vermeulen and the IT support team for making this meeting possible. Please have a wonderful weekend. The meeting is adjourned.